What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to continue giving you my top 10 quarterbacks in leagues around the nation this year. And today, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 quarterbacks in the Pac-12 for the 2020 season. Now, the Pac-12 is a very young group of quarterbacks. There are lots of young guys returning and lots of guys who have to replace some pretty darn good starters. I'm going to be throwing in there at the starting role guys who are going to improve next year. And I expect the Pac-12 quarterback group to be one of the most improved groups of quarterbacks in the entire nation. As I said, lots of young guys, lots of great young potential out here on Pac-12. And the young potential starts here at number 10 with Tristan Gebbia of Oregon State. Now, I talked about Oregon State indirectly a lot, and Oregon State is a team that is only improving as the years go by. I think Tristan Gebbia started one game last year, and he played fairly decent in that game. And overall in 2019, had 347 passing yards with 2 passing touchdowns, only 1 interception with 63% completion and a 119.6 passer rating. Now, I should mention that he clearly was not the starter last year, but I do think he is going to be the starter this year. Runs the football if he has to, 45 rushing yards with 1 rushing touchdown. I think Tristan Gebbia is going to throw for more touchdowns than he did last year, clearly. Higher interception number, I just naturally expect to go up. But I think a lot of people are going to be sleeping on Tristan Gebbia of Oregon State. I've seen a lot of lists where he is at the bottom. He is the worst starting quarterback in the Pac-12, and I just don't think that's true. I think as Oregon State is getting better, every position on the field is getting better for Oregon State. I think Tristan Gebbia is going to have a pretty darn good season next year for the Beavers. And we move on to number 9, and that's going to be Grant Gunnell of Arizona. So Arizona is losing Khalil Tate, the star quarterback, and he just kind of fell off last year and then didn't perform up to what we're used to seeing from Khalil Tate. So Grant Gunnell came in and he performed pretty well. 1,239 passing yards, 9 passing touchdowns, only 1 interception, which was surprising to me. 65% completion percentage with a 150.2 passer rating, only 14 rush yards with a rushing touchdown, so doesn't really run the football all that much. But Grant Gunnell's a guy that, while Arizona is not going to be that great this year, I expect him to have a pretty good individual season. Now, I don't think he's going to be able to replace Khalil Tate just because Khalil Tate was a runner and a thrower. Grant Gunnell's more of a pocket passer than anything, a pro-style quarterback. But I do think that Grant Gunnell has a lot of potential. Played about, I'd say, half the season, if not a little bit more, a little bit less last year after Khalil Tate just didn't perform up to expectations. And overall, while Arizona, as I said earlier, it's not going to be that great, I think Grant Gunnell is going to have a very impressive individual season. And we'll move on to number 8, and that is Davis Mills of Stanford. So he is going to be the full-time starter after KJ Costello, of course, went down with an injury last year and then transferred out. He is going to go join Mike Leach over at Mississippi State. So that's going to be an interesting combo to watch. But Davis Mills at Stanford is really interesting as well because we look at what he did last year, almost 2,000 passing yards with 11 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions, of 66% completion percentage with a 144.8 passer rating. Davis Mills is a very interesting case for me, and a guy that, much like the Stanford team, could be good, could also not be very good. But I'm going to throw him here at the number 8 spot among quarterbacks in the Pac-12. I just think that Davis Mills is going to be far too great to be any lower on this list. But also, I don't think we've seen Davis Mills' full potential, but I do think we've seen close to it. He is going to be playing a full season this year, so I expect him to have 2,000 passing yards this year. But as I said, Stanford's a team that could be good, could not be very good. We'll just have to wait and see on Davis Mills. Number 7 is Dorian Thompson-Robinson of UCLA, and I think he is a big part of why Chip Kelly is finally going to be getting the Chip Kelly offense we're used to seeing from him back this year at UCLA. And we look at what he did last year: 2,701 passing yards with 21 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Just got to cut back on those interception numbers. I think he's tried to force a lot of throws that really should never even have been thrown in the first place, but does have 60% completion for the 134.9 passer rating last year. Basically 200 rushing yards with 4 rushing touchdowns last year as well. So runs the ball if he has to, but Chip Kelly is slowly getting his Ole Miss offense back at UCLA, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a big part in that. And while I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to have a pretty darn good individual season next year, UCLA is a team that is coming off a lot of momentum. In 2019, had a big comeback win against Washington State. Lots of other good wins late in the season as well. UCLA is a team that is also slowly getting better, and a team that I think people have got to watch out for, and I think people are going to be sleeping on Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Number 6 is Jacob Sirmon. So he only threw 3 passes last year as a backup to Jacob Eason for only 19 passing yards. So only 3 passes for Jacob Sirmon. Didn't play a lot of snaps at all in a Washington uniform, but Jacob Sirmon, I think, is a guy that has the potential to be pretty darn good. A lot of people haven't decided whether he's going to be good, whether he's not going to be good. So I threw him in the middle of the list here at number 6. Jacob Sirmon is a guy for me that could be fairly decent. I don't think he's going to be a Jacob Eason at Washington, but I do think he has potential to be really good. We just don't know a lot about this guy because he hasn't really played all that much in a college uniform. Like I said, only threw 3 passes last year. So I think Jacob Sirmon is going to have to be like a wait and see kind of player, but I'm a believer in that Jacob Sirmon does have the potential to be really, really good. We move on to number 5, and that is Jake Bentley of Utah. So he got hurt in 2019 at South Carolina, and Ryan Hilinski's been in there. And Ryan Hilinski did a good job, so Jake Bentley said, all right, I'm going to transfer out. And he has transferred to Utah. Utah is losing their quarterback, Tyler Huntley, along with their running back, Zach Moss, the 2 biggest pieces of their offense. So Jake Bentley is going to come in here. And we'll look at what he did in 2018 since he got hurt in 2019. 3,171 passing yards with 27 passing touchdowns, 14 interceptions. 62% completion with a 146.3 passer rating, 78 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns in 2018 as well. So he's more of a pocket passer than anything, clearly. Only runs out of the pocket if absolutely necessary. And Jake Bentley I've seen as high as, I believe, number 2 on some lists in the Pac-12. And I'm not a firm believer in Jake Bentley quite yet. He does have one of the better tight ends in all of college football over there at Utah, so he will definitely be his number 1 target. I just don't think Jake Bentley's going to be able to get to 3,000 passing yards this year. I think it's a possibility, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. We'll have to see if he can get back to full health, stay healthy, and if Jake Bentley I think he's going to be fairly good over there at Utah, but maybe he can shatter my expectations. Definitely think he's going to cut back on those interception numbers. Passing touchdowns will probably be around the same over there at Utah, but I'm not expecting too much from Jake Bentley at Utah quite yet. Move on to number 4, and that is going to be Tyler Shough of Oregon. And we look at what he did in 2019, only threw 15 passes, so had 144 passing yards throughout those 15 passes with 3 passing touchdowns, an 80% completion percentage, which means he went 12 of 15. And overall compiled a 226.6 passer rating, which normally would be really, really impressive, but keep in mind this guy only threw 15 passes last year, but was really accurate on those passes. Now, he has some big shoes to fill. He has to replace Justin Herbert, who was a top 10 NFL draft pick. That is some big shoes to fill, but he is going to be protected by, in what my opinion is another top 10 NFL draft pick and the best offensive tackle in 2020 in Penei Sewell. He is going to be protected by him, and I just think Tyler Shough has a lot of potential. Now, a lot of people aren't too high on Tyler Shough, but I think Tyler Shough has potential to be pretty darn good next year. We already saw what he could do last year. He did go 12 of 15, no interceptions last year, so made the most of his passes in an Oregon uniform last year. Just think that Tyler Shough has a lot of potential that we have not seen yet, and while he does have big shoes to fill in Justin Herbert, I don't think he's going to be able to fill them fully, but I think he'll be able to fill them pretty well at Oregon, why he is at number 4. Number 3 is Chase Garbers of the California Golden Bears, and the Cal offense that really hasn't seen a lot of production in the past couple years. I think only averaged like 21 or 22 points per game last year. It's been their defense that's done a lot for Cal and why Cal is any sort of decent. But I think Cal's offense is going to improve tenfold from where it has been in years past. They are the number 1 team in the nation in returning production, and it all starts with Chase Garbers. 1,772 passing yards last year with 14 passing touchdowns and only three interceptions, Overall compiled 61% completion with a 148.9 passer rating. Can run the football as well. 223 rushing yards with 3 rushing touchdowns. Chase Garbers is the guy that I do really like this year, and I do think people are sleeping on him. And as I said, a Cal offense that I think is going to improve tenfold, and I think Chase Garbers is only going to improve as well. I think Chase Garbers is going to easily get to 2,000 passing yards this year. Now, a lot of people might get mad at me for that, but I do think Chase Garbers can get to 2,000 passing yards last year. Now the argument's going to be, well, Cal's offense hasn't been that great in past years. But as I just said, I think they're returning 93 or 94% of their offense from last year, which is number 1 in the entire nation by quite a margin. Maybe I think by 0.5% or maybe even a full percent. So Cal is a team that, especially on the offensive side, you have to watch out for. And a Cal team that I really like, and I really like Chase Garbers in 2020. Number 2 is Jayden Daniels, and I think you guys know how much I like Jayden Daniels. He really impressed me as a freshman. I didn't have too high expectations for him as a freshman, and man, did he blow those expectations out of the water. Almost 3,000 passing yards with 17 passing touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. So made the most of his throws, just made a couple little mistakes, but nothing too major. Overall compiled 61% completion with a 149.2 passer rating. And I know the argument here for Jayden Daniels is going to be he's losing his running back in Benjamin and his top target in Brandon Ayuk. A lot of people forget about Frank Darby. I think Frank Darby, while he's not as good as Brandon Ayuk, in my opinion, I do think he is still a really solid player and definitely Jayden Daniels' top target for 2020. And Jayden Daniels maybe even could improve on his numbers last year. I mean, basically 3,000 passing yards last year. I think he can replicate that in 2020. Now, again, doesn't have Brandon Ayuk and Frank Darby to throw to, but Frank Darby's still pretty darn good, as I said earlier. I think they're going to be able to get a replacement for Benjamin later down the season, maybe not early on, but he's got a lot of easy games in the start of the season, does Jayden Daniels. Also proves he can run the football as well, 355 rush yards with 3 rushing touchdowns, so can scramble out of the pocket if he needs to, but one of the better young pocket passers in the entire nation, and he is my number 10 quarterback in the nation, if you remember from Monday. So Jayden Daniels, to me, I'm really excited to watch him get on the football field. As a sophomore, I think he's going to make some even smarter throws with the football. But I think we all know who the number 1 quarterback in the Pac-12 is, and it is Jayden Daniels by a wide margin, in my opinion. He and Sam Howell and Jayden Daniels were some of the best young arms last year, and I think Jayden Daniels impressed me the most as a young arm, maybe besides Sam Howell, but Jayden Daniels definitely impressed me. Got thrown in week 2, week 3 after JT Daniels went down with an injury and quarterback issues, got figured out for USC, and they ended up going with Jayden Daniels, and what he did last year as a freshman was amazing. 3,500 passing yards with 30 passing touchdowns, only 9 interceptions, 72% completion with a 167.6 passer rating. Jayden Daniels was absolutely insane last year, and now with JT Daniels transferring over to Georgia, he is the full-time starter there at USC. In the USC offense that is losing Michael Pittman, but still has Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyler Vaughns, and in my opinion, what's going to be one of the most explosive offenses in the entire nation next year. Has a pretty good offensive line as well. So Jayden Daniels is far and away the number 1 quarterback in the Pac-12 for multiple reason, one of the best young arms in college football. Does have an early season test week 1 against Alabama. But if he can play really well in that game, I think Kedon Slovis is due for another 3,500 passing yard season. And I'll say it again, is far and away the best quarterback in the Pac-12, in my opinion. All right, that's going to do it for my top 10 quarterbacks in the Pac-12 for the 2020 college football season. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you are brand new to the channel, or just enjoy my content and turn on that notification bell to join Tailgate Nation. And if you haven't done so already, do leave a comment down below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the quarterback group in the Pac-12 for 2020. And as always, until next time, remember to play hard, the tailgate harder, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.